kuno abo pano mamuona kere nai Gambakwe anovura meso anovura nzeve anogaya marigi Gambakwe doti como usasaire Gambakwe anogaya marigi
Gambakwe uyo anotara mari anogaya mari garai mamunzwa pane nyaya pano zvamunoda kunzwa zvinotaurwa pano madiko kumunzwa mugovane.com Gambakwe vanogaya mari vanotaura mari vanoziya mari Gambakwe vanotaura feya kuti pamberi zvichafamba sei vanhuterere zvikubatsirei mukufamba kwenyu zvikubatsirei mirai ndikudze kuti chokwadi pano chizere Gambakwe vanogaya cash vanopa mafacts vanotaura straight vane evidence vane confidence plus intelligence
entertainment current affairs and news Gambakwe.com usasarire Gambakwe anogaya mari Gambakwe kuno abo pano mamu.
Right, 10 June 2021, and today I'm happy to be back. We've had a lot of load shedding here in South Africa over the past 4 to 5 days. In fact, today we're on stage 3 and yesterday we're on stage 4. It gets very, very difficult here, especially for someone running an online media company, if electricity is not there, because the networks become very weak, and also the phone system doesn't work very well if there's no electricity. So today I want to start off with a very important topic: the appointment of the CEO of the ZBC. So ZBC is a critical organization, especially given the period where we are going, the period of the elections, because the ZBC is a very credible source of news. They also have a very wide reach in the country. So if you are in Mtare, and if you are in Vikfors and in Bulawayo, and you hear something on ZBC, it's almost gospel. And these guys have got radio stations. I think they've got about 6 radio stations or more. They have got the TV station, which has got a news bulletin that covers news, business, politics. So it's critical that the ZBC is run well. And I want to look at the appointment that they made yesterday. Adelaide Chikunguru, she is the new CEO there. taking over from Harriet Rushaya. You know, Harriet had a scandal when she immediately joined ZBC. Someone leaked a video.
I would like to thank you for the warm welcome. I would like to assure you that I'm dedicated to ensuring that we meet our goals, and that, you know, as an individual, I am a results-oriented person, and that I hope that we, as a team, with my fellow directors, that we'll be able to take this organization forward and to the next level. So I am dedicated and committed to making that happen. Thank you very much. Thank you once again.
Okay, so in fact, I wanted to show you her picture. Then I end up showing you a video. That is Adelaide Chikunguru. She is the new CEO of the ZBC. And as I was saying, just before I interrupted myself, she takes over from Harriet Rushaya, and Harriet has got an MSc in, I think, sports management, if I'm not mistaken. So she has a master's in a field which is not really television, and she does not have a lot of experience. She has done a lot of work in other fields, but not in television. Similarly, we are having Harriet coming in. I don't want to judge her, but she has got no experience in television. So that is one thing that I'm picking up from what has been happening. So if you look at the previous CEOs of ZBC, so let us quickly look at the past 5 or 6 CEOs of ZBC. So if you go back to 2006, they had Henry Muradzikwa. In 2009, they had Hepson Mchechetere. In 2014, they had Patrick Mavura, who lasted for 5 years until he was fired in 2019. And they put an acting CEO, Wisdom Hombarume, who spent about a year or so, less than a year. And then Harriet came in, and because of the scandal, she could not stay at ZBC. I think somebody sabotaged her very, very badly, or she sabotaged herself very, very badly. And then here we have got Adelaide Chikunguru coming in. So Adelaide is coming in from Tongat Hulet. I hope I pronounced well, in Triangle. So she has a very interesting CV. If you look at her CV, it's interesting in that you cannot place her as a CEO. So I want to take you through, and then I want us to look at how TV is important. And I want to go back at our identity as Zimbabweans, and also from the business angle, how much money we're losing to SABC. So SABC has got a free-to-air decoder that they're selling in Zimbabwe. Almost every rural home in Zimbabwe has got that decoder. And then if you look at DSTV, almost every urban home in Zimbabwe has got that decoder. And then there are also other free-to-air decoders in Zimbabwe. So at least, according to estimations, there are 15 million decoders in Zimbabwe. Some people have got more than one decoder in their home. The hotels. So it's massive. This is a massive outflow of currency from Zimbabwe. So it's an important topic because the money that we're losing to television in Zimbabwe every year is massive. If you multiply, let's say we are losing 15 million a month to television in South Africa, and you multiply that by 12, that's almost 200 million. And that is just the monetary loss. What about the intellectual property loss, the employment that we could have created? So there is a big loss happening because of this. So whatever you do at ZBC, the kind of content that you produce, if people cannot watch it, it means we'll continue to lose all this money to South Africa. We've got a better local content policy. And I'm happy to see that Adelaide has worked in an agency in Tanzania. So she would know how an agency works. She would know the loss that we're having in Zimbabwe in terms of television. Television is serious business, and it affects not only the money, it also affects the image that people have of their own country. It affects investors. When people come into Zimbabwe, what they watch, it's very, very important. I brought some investors in Zimbabwe. I think that was back in 2008. And when we were at the airport, at Harare International Airport, there was a minister called, I think it was Kanyiso Ndlovu, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the surname loses me there. And he started to threaten on TV. And I was amazed that all the guys that I was with, they were amazed that this was happening. He was saying such negative stuff. And that was a TV station, a TV that was in the airport. And I think when you broadcast, you never know who's watching, including the people that are investors in your country, people who want to come and put money into projects. So ZBC is very, very critical as an organization and as a channel for putting out information. But let me not go too deep into my opinions. Let's go into Adelaide Chikunguru. And I've seen somewhere she's called Adelaide Chikunguru Musovi. I don't know if she's married or if she was married, but that is something that we have to dig deeper. Right, so in 2000, okay, let's go a bit back. In 1999, she finished at Regina Mundi Girls High in Gweru. And then in 2000, she went to the Midland State University. This is from LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn, you'll see it there. And then in 2006, so she spent 6 years at Midland State University. And I don't really care much about Midland State University. I think they don't do a good job. The guys who come from Midland State University that we have tried to employ over the past few years, we have had a very difficult time with the guys from Midland State University. This is just my opinion. I'm not saying everyone there who's coming from there is not doing a good job. In 2006, she started as a corporate relations executive. So I'll take this as she was in sales at Net One for 2 years. And then in 2008, she went to a company called Touchline Ogilvy. And then she went to a company called, well, not a company. This is the National Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Board. That was 2010 to 2011. For 1 year, she was there. Then I think this board has been dissolved. But I don't know if it was dissolved when she was there or before she was there. Then between 2014 and 2019, she became a non-executive board member of the Zimbabwe Prisons Advisory Board of Masvingo. And then in 2016, she started at Tongat Hulett, Zimbabwe Operations, as a corporate affairs communications executive. And then in 2011 to present, she was also corporate affairs and communications manager. Other things that she have done is she sits on quite a number of boards. So if you go to gambakwe.com, you're going to see all this information that I'm putting out here. She has done a lot. And I think this Touchline Ogilvy is in Tanzania, if I'm not mistaken, from what I've seen. She's also in the CSR network as vice chairman, and she's chairperson of Shiriakanaka Mining, and she's president of the Triangle United Football Club and founder, obviously, at Shiriakanaka, non-executive at Southeastern College. So if you look at this, as I was saying, you can see that there is not much experience in television. She's not a TV person. So she's not bad. She's got the qualifications, but personally, I would have wanted in ZBC an experienced television person. And if you remember, this position was supposed to be taken by Hopo Chingono. Now, Hopo Chingono, the problem with Hopo Chingono is that he was not going to toe the line. I don't think he was going to allow or to allow government to give him direction as much as ZBC is such a critical organization. So if Hopo Chingono had taken this position, there were obviously going to be problems. If you go back to 2006, the CEOs were there. They were fired for this very reason. They did not want interference. So when Jonathan Moyo came in, he fired the CEO that he found at ZBC. And any new person who comes in at ZBC, in the Ministry of Information, they fire the people who are there. They try to appoint their own board. So if you look at the current board, which is there, I think this was appointed in August, and it is headed by the chairperson called Tai. I think Tai, I don't know his full name, but if you go to Gambakwe.com, we've prepared for you the list of everyone who is on the board. So it was critical. If ZBC is to work, it is critical that ZBC gets credibility. We have said that ZBC has got reach. There is no television station other than ZBC in Zimbabwe. Even people with DSTV, at 8 p.m., they switch off their DSTV, they go and watch ZBC. If you want to know what is happening across the country, you have to watch ZBC. They've got many, many news bulletins. They've got breaking news on their radio stations. And if you put that ZTN, which is the Zim Papers television network, have got a TV license. You've got two very good platforms. And what ZTN is doing, which is, if you look about 2 hours ago, Fadzai Mahere and other opposition parties, they were given a platform to debate a ZANU-PF spokesperson. I think that's Tafazo Mongwadi. And ZTN is doing a good job. They are online. ZBC is doing a good job with their news bulletins online. They're also doing a good job producing news. But what is lacking is local content. Local content is critical. There is nothing you can do in television without local content. That's why stations or TV stations, like small little TV channels, YouTube channels, are getting millions of views. Gambakwe Media gets over 4 million views a month. And that is when, with all these data issues, imagine the people who download our videos, the people who share the videos at home. ZBC is in a much better position. Their news bulletin, when there is a critical event, it reaches a lot of people in the diaspora. It has become a source of news for people in the diaspora. So ZBC put together newspapers like Herald, Sunday Mail, H Metro, B Metro. The government of Zimbabwe has got a very good piece of media. The media that is controlled by the Zimbabwe government is probably more than 80% of the media in Zimbabwe. They're doing a very good job, especially of disseminating information online, news. When we talk of news, they are doing a good job. Where they are missing it is on local content, on involving local producers, on marketing the country. ZBC is not doing a good job when it comes to marketing the country. They do not involve the public. So the public is watching, but they're not interacting with the station. So this is where a young person like Adelaide, my estimation is that Adelaide is 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I've not seen her age, but looking at the time she left the MSU, she could be, say, 39 or 40 years old. Very young person. You need to be in touch with what the young people want. And then you need to understand where our country is. Our country is going through a critical change. Zimbabwe is at a stage where everything's about to change. And this is unavoidable change that is going to happen within the next 5 to 10 years. The Zimbabwe that you're going to see is not the same Zimbabwe that is there now. We are moving from the generation that fought the war to the young generation that is totally disconnected from anything that is happening in Zimbabwe. A generation that is lacking in pride. So a normal Zimbabwean that you have now in the country, a young, let's say 25-year-old, has never worked, they could do anything for money. And you need to then bring these people together around a national cause and communicate almost like a national culture, a national vision. All those things are important to do. And you need to involve the young people. Young people want to be involved. They want to participate. And this is where it is very critical for ZBC to work. And at the moment, it's not working because young people, they are following the South African culture. They listen to South African music. They spend a lot more time watching CNN on DSTV. So CNN is not a South African station. South Africa is allowing CNN to come and broadcast. And if you've got money, you pay. So what Zimbabwe needs to do is to make sure that ZBC becomes attractive. If ZBC is attractive and it's free, people will pay their TV licenses, they watch, and you win both ways. You won't lose, because then you can put in your content in between what people want to watch. People want to watch American soaps. They want more TV stations. And this is what people want. TV is about doing what people want. So going back to Adelaide, and I want to go back to what I just said about Chingono. If Chingono had taken over, what we're going to see was probably a more aggressive editorial policy. So what is the role of the CEO? Firstly, obviously, to mobilize resources, and then to execute the strategy and make sure you meet the goals that are set by the board. The board at ZBC, if you look at it, who is in that board? Do these guys know media? I look at the guys who are here, and most of them, they don't have a media background. And Elliot is in the board. There's Tsinzi Rembizi, Ambassador Thomas Vuma, Josiah Tai, the chairman, Denver Optala, Reverend Thompson Dube, Brian Mutangan Ndevu. So what I would do here, if I was appointing this board and I was the minister, I would first of all put people who know about media. That's critical. Secondly, I would put people who are young, because as I said, Zimbabwe is going to go through a critical change. Within a very short space of time, our country is going through an irreversible change. You can see it. The current situation that is there in our country is not sustainable. You cannot have the majority of your people outside the country without a connection to their country, and the people inside depending on the people who are outside. So what is going to happen is there's going to be a massive change, and that massive change needs to be prepared for. How do you prepare for that change? You start putting in place the essential structures for a society, and ZBC is key, because when you watch ZBC, that's basically the reflection of your society. And when you appoint a 40-year-old CEO, your board must also have the necessary experience to then guide that CEO so that she can produce the results that you want, which is people to watch. You want people to watch more. You want the downstream industries to grow. The GDP from television should be at least 8% of the GDP of Zimbabwe. So, which means the television industry, the media industry in Zimbabwe should be hitting around 1 to 2 billion. That is where you should be. You should be producing that kind of money on social media, on television, traditional television, and also in the newspaper industry. So, to me, it's a good step to have a young CEO, but I do not know if these young CEOs that are coming in, Elliot, Adelaide, do they have the necessary experience to push a turnaround? So a turnaround is where you totally reimagine the organization and you take yourself from a position in a competitive, if you look at the competition, ZBC right now has got everything to succeed. What they're lacking is the competitive advantage to make sure that they push out these outside television stations like DSTV, like the free-to-air decoders. The reason why people are going to these free-to-air decoders is because data is expensive in Zimbabwe. When data becomes cheaper, you're going to be fighting with Netflix. I've got Netflix in my house, and it's uncapped for we pay $14 a month. And we can watch all the movies we want. You can't finish the entertainment on Netflix. So if data becomes cheaper in Zimbabwe, if fiber to the home becomes available, ZBC will be competing with Netflix, but they'll always win because local content is the change maker, is a game changer. If you do well in local content, your TV station will always be successful. And I think at the moment, ZBC is failing there. So the key priority for someone like Adelaide, when you're getting into ZBC, will be then to make sure that you come up with a successful content strategy. How do we produce content locally? How do we incorporate the people that people already know? The young people already know Madam Boss, they know Maititi, they know Gambakwe. How do you incorporate Simbachi Kanza into ZBC so that instead of spending the whole time talking things that he doesn't know, they start helping to build the country? How do you take the best brains of Zimbabwe and put them into this infrastructure of television in Zimbabwe that is so critical in the nation, in the vision of the country? So I think I have looked at who appoints the CEO. Government and ZBC, how do these two interact? The board, the Minister of Information, and does anyone measure the results? Or money just keeps going into ZBC, but no one ever looks at, are we getting value from this? And as we go towards the elections, what changes are going to be needed to happen as ZBC? Are we going to need to give the opposition a platform? And what is the impact? Is everyone measuring all this? And what happens when things have changed in Zimbabwe? Are we going to be able to sustain our station? You see what has happened at SABC. There's been a bloodbath. The structure of SABC has totally changed. The guys had over 40 radio stations and they had a lot of television stations. Everything has had to change. And what has ZBC learned from all that? And is the new CEO, Adelaide, is she able to make these changes at ZBC? Is she able to succeed? She said she's a very hard worker, and I can see she has worked in a lot of communication industries, but can she make that change that is needed? Because a television job, you have to be out there, you have to be aggressive. First, you have to raise money, as I said, but you also have to attract attention. You need a very charismatic person in that position. You need someone who's going to work with creatives, people that want to experiment with different things. You cannot have a traditional approach and have a turnaround at a company like ZBC, which most of us, when we were young, it was a joy to watch. To watch ZBC was amazing. It was an amazing experience. When I used to watch ZBC, when I was in university, in the late 90s, it was a pleasure to watch ZBC. We used to watch some of the best programs there until the arrival of someone like Jonathan Moyo, who totally had no idea about television. And they threw him into the Ministry of Information. And it was chaos, because what he did is he did not understand where to place local content. And he did not understand the audience. What does the audience want? If you just come in and you try to impose on the audience, they will run away. They've got other options, especially with the current other options that I have spoken about. But if you do local content well, if you do your dramas, your soapies, if you do your talk shows, all these things, they need to happen. And then downstream, you need to develop the production houses. You need to develop your producers. You need to make sure equipment is available. And you do very, very well with local content. You will never go wrong with local content. And that is why, as I said to you, right now, we've got people watching me. 2 hours ago, I was watching Olinda Chapo. She had 1,000 people on her live. People are there. They're willing to watch these shows, these local shows. But you have to structure it well. You have to understand what the people want. And then your country will do very, very well, because television is just not TV. It's a very big, important part of turning around the opinion in the country. Right, I think I've covered everything here that I wanted to cover. And I've talked for too long. I don't like talking for more than 30 minutes. Let me look at the comments and let's see what our guys are saying here. Dev Ngomo, you don't like my intro. It's fine. Dev, I want you to talk to me. Maybe we can work on the intro together. You don't like the song Gambakwe Media. Let's look at Lee Lex. On top order, relocate ZBC to the resort town of Victoria Falls. I don't think that is possible. And let me explain you why. You can have a very good location in Vic Falls. But imagine if SABC was operating from, for example, Durban or from Polokwane. It won't work, because most of your creatives, your big media houses, they're in the big cities. I was in Maputo last year, and there are 2 big TV stations in Maputo. So I don't think it's possible to have ZBC in Vic Falls. What you could do is to have a very good, almost a branch in Vic Falls, because what happens in Vic Falls? People are on holiday. So I don't think your news happens there. If you want to see the president and he calls a press conference, what are you going to do? You're going to fly from Vic Falls. I don't know. It just doesn't look like it's going to work for me. It will work partially and not as much as having the head office of ZBC. Plus, they've got that big head office in Harare. What is going to happen? Then Nehemiah says, who watches ZTV? Right, Nehemiah, you're wrong. I tell you this. Ask Chamisa, what is the impact of ZBC when ZANU-PF gets to campaign on ZBC and he doesn't? These guys have gone to court to try to flight adverts on ZBC because they know the power of ZBC. ZBC is a powerful medium, and we need to understand it. We need to leverage the power of ZBC. It's an important national asset. There are very few countries with a broadcaster like ZBC. And I think you are talking here about ZTV. A lot of people watch ZTV. That's the only medium that they have. Then why all these appointed as Shona speaking as CEO? I don't know. I don't think that's important. I don't think they like put on the CV to say you have to be Shona. But, well, look, these are some of the things. Do we have to think about tribe on everything? I don't think so, Joshua. I don't think so. I don't think we have to think about tribe on everything. Then let's go to Kraposi Kanga. If ZBC is doing a good job, why not come back and work there? I kind of have my own media that is really doing well. Imagine if everyone left everything they're doing and look for a job. That won't work. What I would do, and I want you to understand this, Kraposi. I don't expect guys like Gambakwe to look for a job. I expect Gambakwe to create jobs. And so far, at our height, we're 29 people working at Gambakwe Media. If you give a guy like Gambakwe an opportunity in Zimbabwe, we can multiply that by 10. We can create 500 jobs. Then you take Madam Boss, she creates 500 jobs. You take Olinda Chapo, she comes to Zimbabwe, she creates 500 jobs. This is what you need to do. Don't think small, think big. And this is where we need to go. And also, think of TV as a window to Zimbabwe. People want to see what is happening in your country. Do well, people will buy your shows. Don't always buy South African shows, and you will do well. If you do well, your children will do well, and the country will also do well. People want to come to Zimbabwe. People want to come to the Vic Falls. That is the role of ZBC. It's like Air Zimbabwe doing well. Air Zimbabwe is going to be flying again very soon to Johannesburg. Do you know what a big difference that makes? If you can fly on Air Zimbabwe, they're not too worried about profit. They can fly to Bulawayo instead of just going straight to Harare. So these big parastatals, they can make a big difference in our country. But we need people who think differently. We really need to think like CEOs. So if you think like a junior employee, you won't get it. You have to think like a CEO. A CEO sees things that are around the corner. So what would things look like in 5 years' time? That is how a CEO thinks. And then a board member will say, what do things look like in 10 years? And then your president must say, what do things look like in 15 years? That's why you see the president has said Vision 2030. If you see guys are always thinking short term, that is a problem. And that is something that we need to address. Short-term thinking is a problem. Then did Denimas Temba, where is the ZANU-PF proxy, Jonasi? Why? ZANU-PF proxy is a wrong word. Jonasi is now a ZANU-PF member, so he's not a proxy. Unfortunately, on Monday, with load shedding 2 minutes before we started the show, and we were to move it to Monday next week. Now, let's go to Jetro. There were no pleasure in watching ZBC. It was the only station in the country, and your so-called local content was shown language being forced into our throats. Jetro Dube, let me explain something to you. And you're my brother, so I want to explain something to you. Firstly, I really enjoyed watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on ZBC. I enjoyed watching all the new music on Zimbabwe. Tupac Shakur, Dr. Dre. We were young then. And you cannot say ZBC was bad. Teach Matters, those guys were good. Please, let's not lie to each other, Jetro. ZBC was good in the past. And if you look at the people that are on radio in Zimbabwe, people like Peter Jones, all those people, they were good. They came here to South Africa to work here because they were the best. Teach Matters was the best DJ in South Africa, and he came from Zimbabwe. So let's move away from that debate. Now, let's go to this issue of Shona language. And I want to challenge you and all my brothers from Matabeleland. Remember, my home is Matabeleland. You can never go to Harare and say, everyone here, let's now speak in my language. How do you do it? You do what the guys in Zimbabwe have done. If you know a guy called Babongile, he went to school with me. They started a radio station in Bulawayo, which is really, really good. And people watch and listen to that radio station. You got a guy, Ezra. Ezra is doing a good job. He doesn't have the resources, but he's doing a good job. You've got many guys from Matabeleland who are doing well. In South Africa here, you've got Becky Castings, who is casting all these local celebrities on South African TV. So move away from this thing of wanting government to do stuff for you. Make it happen. Yesterday, I was watching a group in Matabeleland that is providing water. They're digging boreholes. They did not say, oh, the government is not coming here to do things for us. Make it happen and move away from this debate of what is on ZBC. What is there needs to be improved, but it's not tribal. Right, let me go to the last comment. And I want to go to someone who's talking good about me. Yeah. So 3D Dube. I like your thinking, but unfortunately, Zim is not a country where you can implement long-term goals. I don't agree with you, Dube. And let me end by this thing. I'm going to say this a lot of times. Zimbabwe is about to go through a change that you have never seen. In the next 10 years, you won't recognize Zimbabwe. Take this from me, and you can take this and write it in a book. Zimbabweans outside the country are willing to go back home. They are fed up. They want to live in their own country. They want to do well. And the situation in Zimbabwe is ready for massive change. Let me tell you what we've done. In the past 2 months, we've managed to put together about 150 people. And we managed to raise almost 500,000 rands. We think that's the past 3 months. We're going to raise even more. We're going to do a lot of projects. There is nothing that can stop Zimbabweans from doing well. Zimbabweans are doing well all over the world. The only place that Zimbabweans are not doing well is in their own country. And what you need to understand is that a television station like ZBC has been there since 1980, and it's going to be there until 100 years from now, if the law doesn't change. So what do you need to do? You need to make these organizations work, because in other countries, this is where you get the good jobs. So if you work at BBC, I don't think you've got a bad job. If you work at SABC, a main actor at SABC 5 years ago was earning 80,000 rands a week. So 320,000 a month. Now, think about that. How many main actors, how many shows were there? You need to make these things work. And the first thing that people need to do is to stop having a negative view about your own country. There's no one who's going to come and make Zimbabwe good. You are the person that needs to make Zimbabwe work. And then if Zimbabwe works, you won't have to work so hard. You won't have to travel so far. Zimbabweans are everywhere. But that's not how it's supposed to be. It doesn't mean there's no money in Zimbabwe. People are making millions in Zimbabwe. In fact, billions in Zimbabwe. And young Zimbabweans are going out to clean kitchens, to serve tables. And yet, in your own country, you've got rich minerals, you've got untapped industries that you cannot even imagine. So this is what I'm talking about. You need to change the way you think. And you need to understand that there's opportunity. That if you do not take, you see, if you don't take those opportunities, someone else is going to come and take those opportunities. And I always tell young people, don't think, oh, if Chamisa gets into office, or if Monzora gets into office, then I'm going to do very, very well. It's not true. The problems that you have are your personal problems. You have to solve them, and you have to start thinking differently about how you're going to solve them, because there's no place where there's no opportunities. It's just you. You need to find it. You need to find that opportunity, and then you need to take advantage of that opportunity. Right. Let me end this discussion before I make a lot of people angry, like Denimas Temba. But as I said, we were looking here at Adelaide Chikunguru, probably the second female CEO, about 40 years old, coming from Tongat Hulet, and a student of the Midlands State University, Regina Mundi, and also she has done quite a lot. She has moved around. But I think if she's going to succeed in this role, she has to change a lot. She has to change the organization. She has to change the thinking. And she has to convince everybody to come along and make this organization a success. And that is what makes a real true CEO. If you're a natural born CEO, you can do this. But if you're not, within a few short months, we'll hear a few statements about someone getting fired, just like what has happened to Elliot, who I think was sabotaged. That leak, it happened at a very strange time, because when I saw that video, I was like, what's happening here? So, right, I think I have to wrap it up, and we'll talk again on let me say on Saturday, I haven't talked to Senator Kalipani Pugen in a very, very long time. And I want to talk to him if he's available. I know he was traveling. So if he's available, we'll bring him on Saturday and we'll talk to him. And then Mr. Jonasi will be back on Monday. Thank you very much for watching and enjoy your evening. I'll be back, as I said, on Saturday. Good night.
Ay, 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 ay,